I fired my broker. You may need to as well. And in this video, we're going to talk about why.
All right, you heard it here, Rob. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you. Happy Saturday to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you get a lot out of this today.
Oh, I don't know how you can't get a lot out of this because, Rob, you're on the record a bunch of times with talking about your insurance protection and coverage and your plans and whatnot. And we're going to talk about all that today, folks. The last thing I expected to hear was what you laid on me this week.
Yeah, and I didn't want to lay that on. I didn't want to have to do anything about that. But you know what? There's a time and place. You know, when we talk about insurance brokers and agents, and there's a big difference between the two.
Oh, yeah, we'll cover that.
I highly recommend you do not use the web to buy your insurance, that you get yourself a broker, and that broker is not a family member and friend, because there are times you're going to need to lean on this person. You don't want to, but insurance is a very, very tricky game today.
That's the truth.
And more, you need to have somebody that is watching your back. And when they're not, we need to step in and say, what in the world is going on here? What were you thinking?
Absolutely. So let's talk about surface level, if you will. You have a lot of insurance policies.
I have a lot of insurance, lots of different insurance products for lots of different reasons. I'm well taken care of in that sense. I am not an insurance broker anymore.
There was a time, huh?
There was a time. There was a time, and there was a purpose for doing it at that time. Much different than what we're dealing with today, but, you know, to pass the insurance test, which was 6-hour gig, which you get a pass fail, right? You don't get to 70% or 90%. So anyway, I'm a consumer of many different types of insurance products. And the thing about insurance is it's very specific to your needs. What it is you're trying to insure, what is your position in life at any particular given point.
Right. Your needs are different than mine.
Absolutely. You drive different things that I drive. You rent, right?
I rent a home.
I own a home. Some people own condos and townhomes. There's different policies for those types of things. The broker is going to look through all of this information and then shop different coverages through different insurers to try and find the best thing for you.
That's the benefit. We started talking about the difference between brokers and agents. That's the benefit of having a broker, because a broker gets to shop multiple insurance companies and policy solutions, whereas an agent represents one insurer. They may have a couple of different policy solutions, but they're limited in their ability to address.
Let's just say you go to the State Farm agent locally in town.
Let's say you don't.
I prefer you didn't.
Go ahead.
But
I'm
let's
sorry.
just say,
Yeah.
they can only sell State Farm products.
Right.
So that's be an agent.
Yes.
Whereas a broker may have 10, 15, 20 different insurance companies that they may represent.
Right.
And figure out what is the best. Because many insurers like niche markets. You either fit into one of those or you don't, and you don't want to get yourself jammed into something that isn't really meant for you.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Take this building and this business. I have a very specific policy for this business, not what you would call a standard BOP or business owner's policy.
Yeah, you don't find that on the internet.
This is incredibly specific to what we do and covers the things that could go wrong. You and I were chatting this week. Tell us about that.
We were. Here's a little behind the scenes picture of what Rob and I do when we're not in front of the camera, which is ironic because we were in front of the camera for the photo,
I guess.
As we were talking, my wife pays for her auto insurance a year in advance. She buys it all on the front end, so she gets a little bit of a discount for doing that. Her policy is coming up for renewal. I brought this conversation to Rob because Kathleen, my wife, was shocked that her insurance premiums went up from $3,600 a year to $4,700 a year, a massive increase of the premiums. And so she started shopping around. And what I didn't realize, because she was downstairs and I was upstairs, she was shopping around on her phone, asking Google.
Google's very smart.
Oh, it's very smart.
Don't buy policies
Please
from
don't.
Google.
It's not an apples to apples conversation. My wife is a horse trainer and the manager of a 333-acre ranch.
Different exposure.
Massively different exposure. She has a Ford F-250 limited edition.
A very, very nice truck.
It is. And it's also aluminum.
The whole truck. The whole exterior of the truck.
Right? And Rob, just for kicks and giggles, why does aluminum matter?
Well, let me put it to you this way. Have you ever heard of steel foil? You usually go to the store and buy aluminum foil. Why? Because it's pliable,
Malleable.
a little soft.
Yeah.
And, in Colorado and many other parts of the country, we get hail.
Yes, we do.
Hail will destroy something that's aluminum. It's much harder to repair than steel. So I recommended that you don't get a policy that doesn't have an OEM rider for Ford OEM parts should it need it.
OEM, original equipment manufacturer.
Yeah.
Critical. I have an OEM rider on my vehicle, which is a Dodge Charger.
I wouldn't own an auto policy that did not have that rider. And I would also get the most robust rental policy possible. By the way, these riders, I know everybody is cost conscious about what they're paying for insurance these days. These are very inexpensive add-ons that can save you a boatload if you have a loss.
Yeah.
So very important.
And that's just it. This started a conversation that is now turning into this video because it's so relevant. Now, I had no idea when I started talking to you about Kathleen's insurance. By the way, the insurance company that she's currently covered under is going away. It's just not going to exist in a year. And so that's why she also had to go shopping.
Mm-hmm.
But to hear you say, I fired my broker, you might need to do the same. Stay tuned, folks. It just got interesting.
So here we go. Brokers have a huge responsibility to you. One of them is to keep you posted on any changes that might happen around your policy. Changes in coverage, rates, whatever the case may be. Let's just throw an example out. An OEM rider that we're talking about in my policy is included in the policy. But what if on renewal, they removed that from the policy and I didn't read the whole policy and I didn't know? It would be my broker's responsibility to tell me the policy changed.
And that's a big one.
And that's a big one.
Right.
That's a big one. So I have a yearly sit down with my broker to go over, prior to renewal, to go over anything that might have changed in life. For me, my son got married. What does that mean? He's not necessarily in our household anymore. What changes as far as that goes? You may have bought some artwork, a ring or some jewelry or guns or something. Or maybe somebody willed something to you that hasn't been covered under last year's policy. We want to make sure we get it covered under this year. You got to have that yearly talk with your broker or agent.
That's the first thing I want to bring up to you. And I'd love to see your comments below. Do you have a yearly review with your broker?
Very important.
If you don't have a broker, we're going to make the case for having a broker.
Yeah.
But do you have that yearly review? I can tell you this, I haven't. And this is a behavior that I'm going to change effective immediately.
Yeah. I have several different brokers for several different reasons. Every one of them I have a yearly chat with prior to renewal to make sure the coverage is
right.
What exposures have changed, those sorts of things. So here's where it gets interesting. Because I have this building and the building is mortgaged, I have to do a yearly personal financial statement. in order to keep that mortgage in place. It's part of the mortgage.
I see.
And part of doing a personal financial statement is they want to know about your mortgage. Now, your mortgage is usually made up of several different things.
Mm-hmm.
So in your mortgage, you could have your principal and interest
Of course.
right up top, but then you may also have your insurance on the house, and you may also have taxes being paid. I needed to break down my mortgage and where all the money was going. The first thing I came across was naturally the taxes. We're not even going to get into that at this point, but that was a 40% increase
Cool.
year over year. But then I'm looking at my insurance because the mortgage company pays that all at once. They don't pay it monthly. We pay it monthly through our mortgage payments, but they pay it all at once.
I see.
And I'm looking at the thing and I'm saying, that's not right.
It's the understatement of the year.
That can't be right. And I'm looking at a number that says $13,000 for a year. And I'm like, wait a second. Go back through the paperwork to see, last year's numbers was $6,000.
Whoa.
So I had my yearly review to go over what needs to be done, so on and so forth. But somehow, nobody told me that my rates were getting raised by over 100%. And actually, the bill goes to the mortgage company, and mortgage company pays it.
You're on the hook.
And there it is, it's gone.
Yep.
So I immediately call up. I didn't call my broker. I called my broker's manager's manager. I said,
Tip number 2, know who to call.
who has been taking care of me for several years. And I said, dude, could this be right? And he says, well, I'm going to get one of my other people to take a little deeper dive into it, and we'll get back to you. And they did, and it is right. And I told him at that time, the gal that was in charge of my insurance that I had my yearly review with,
Your broker.
my broker, she's fired. How do you let somebody's premiums double and not tell them? Still a little mad about it.
You think?
Still a little mad about it.
He's been walking funny for the last week and a half.
So it gets worse.
How is that possible?
It's hard to believe.
Your premiums have more than doubled.
Yes.
You're out of a broker right now, and the broker's boss's boss
Has assigned a new broker.
is on the line.
Yep.
Right?
I stayed with the brokerage.
Okay.
Just, if you're not going to tell me, if you can't call me or email me and say, hey, by the way, your premiums doubled, what do I need you for?
Right.
So it gets worse because there was something else I didn't know and wasn't told.
What?
This I found out months after I fired my broker and got the new broker. The new broker said, well, the markets are a little hairy right this second. Let's get closer to your renewal. We'll do our yearly renewal thing and see where we're at that point.
All right.
So he sends me the information on my current policy so that we could review it together. And, I carry $1,000 deductible, which is kind of normal. I mean, deductibles are going up.
Yeah.
They almost need to go up
Let me ask you a
to
question.
make the premium go down, but that doesn't go down by enough for me.
Let me ask a quick question here. Are we talking about your auto policy, or are we talking about your home policy?
Home policy.
Okay. All right. All right.
So I'm reviewing the paperwork that he sent over, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, what is that now? The wind and hail deductible on my home changed.
We live in a windy, haily place.
Mm-hmm. And I did have to have a new roof put on. So that was probably the reason why there was some change. But now instead of $1,000 deductible on my roof or anything wind and hail related,
Yep.
So, because the house is made out of stucco and all the rest of that, there's lots of things that can happen other than a roof or in addition to a roof.
Sure.
My deductible went from $1,000 to $47,000.
What?
And I didn't know. So my premiums doubled. I didn't know, but I found out. And my deductible, I can't even tell how many multipliers that is. It's now $47,000. So I got to pay the first $47,000
It's
if there's a wind and
4,700
hail claim.
times.
Yeah. So this is partly my fault. I should have read the policy. You must inspect what you expect. And because I thought I was dealing with a firm that had my best interests at heart, I never opened a policy to see what might have changed. I found out through other means what had changed. So I want to, and again, my fault. I should have read my policy. You should too.
Absolutely.
You have to inspect what you expect. Otherwise, how are you going to know?
Right.
Apparently, you can't always trust the people that you trust. So we did a little research, and I just want to read a couple things to you.
Please do.
Insurance brokers have a critical responsibility to communicate any and all changes to their clients' insurance policies. This duty ensures that clients are fully informed about their coverage, enabling them to make educated decisions and maintain appropriate protection. What we've been talking about all this time. Failure to fulfill this obligation can lead to significant legal and financial consequences for both the broker and the insured. Now, I'm not reading all this stuff, but there's a couple other things that are important to this conversation.
All right.
And these fall under the legal implications of failing to notify clients. Failure to adequately inform clients of policy changes can result in legal liability for the brokers. And I'm just going to skip down to the summary. In summary, insurance brokers have a fiduciary responsibility, duty to act in the best interest of their clients, which includes the clear and timely communication of any changes to the insurance policies. By fulfilling this responsibility, brokers can help clients maintain appropriate coverage and protect themselves from unforeseen risks. So, in other words, they may have had a legal problem, had another wind and hail claim, only to find out that I had a $47,000 deductible on it. That is not going to be uncommon anymore. Insurers are going away from the areas that are prone to wind and hail, hurricanes, or, any of these natural disasters. If you're in a fire risk zone, those rates are going to change dramatically, and the amount of not only the coverage, but your deductible potentially.
Flood risk, same thing.
Same thing. So in Colorado, many people are going to see their deductible change from a dollar amount to a percentage of the dwelling. And remember, we talked about condos and townhouses that are kind of like attached.
Yeah.
That's usually governed by an HOA.
Right.
The outside of the building is covered under an insurance policy through the HOA. The interior is your own responsibility to have that insured, so on and so forth.
Yep.
There was a town here that all of the tenants or owners, I guess, of a condo got a special levy, if you will, of like $6,000 or $7,000 that they weren't expecting, which was their portion of that percentage of the roof.
That came as a surprise as well. $6,000 additional fee
To each.
to each of the people in that neighborhood.
Yep.
Wow.
You're going to see the insurers are almost pushing you to self-insure for some of these losses. Like they'll handle the catastrophic side of it, but you're going to have a big chunk up front. Now, oddly enough, if my house burns down tomorrow, I only have $1,000 deductible. I think the point of this whole thing is you've got to have great communication with somebody regarding your needs and the policy's ability to cover you for those needs.
Yeah.
And that person has to be responsible to you. And there is potentially some legal liability on their side if they're not. And they carry their own insurance, which is what's called E&O, errors and omissions.
Right.
Which, if they get dinged on their errors and omissions policy, their rates are now going to go through the roof. So insurance is off the hook today. It doesn't seem like it's being supervised by anybody and they get to do whatever they want. You've got to be an active participant in ensuring the things you need for the right values up front before a loss happens.
That's right.
I mean, we're hoping a loss doesn't happen, but God forbid something does. You want to not go through the drama.
And if you look at any of the 200, gosh, I don't know how many videos that we have today, 220, I believe, in this playlist, you will see case after case after case after case where the insured was surprised by the lack of coverage that happened when they needed their insurer the most.
Amen.
So that's
Happens
why
every day here.
That's why we're having this conversation. That's why my wife and I are going to, instead of having separate policies with the same company, believe it or not, now that we're married, we're going to blend those policies and choose a different company with a different broker, because all of the things that we've talked about here have affected us as well.
Right. And, you present it to your broker and let that broker help you through what you should do, because you've got a change in life.
Yes.
And a change in situation. Maybe it makes sense to do that. It's like, are you going to file jointly or separately or, however?
Right.
Don't ask your agent that.
And don't ask us.
You're going to go to your accountant and say, we got married. How is this going to change our taxes and what should we do to prepare? And you've got to trust that accountant, right?
Yep, you really do.
These insurance brokers are just as important and they need to have your back. That's what I have for today. I hope you find it helpful and reach out if you have any questions.
We have your back, at least in the dissemination of the information that we do. Of course, we'll end this where we started it. We are not brokers. We're not insurance representatives of any sort.
Not an accountant either.
And the purpose of this video is for education and perhaps a little entertainment as well. But it should spark in you the need to at least think about these things and check the boxes. Are you covered? Are you well covered? Do you know what your coverage is? And are you perhaps underinsured?
For sure.
So,
with that, happy Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found a couple of good things here. I appreciate you. All the amazing comments.
Yeah.
Love them all. We respond to all of them. Keep them coming. Other people learn from the comments that you make. And
always.
There's certainly experts out there. Again, I'm not an expert on insurance, but maybe an insurer, an agent's going to pop in and make some comments.
We welcome. Yep.
All right.
All right.
Have an amazing week. We'll see you next week. God bless.